Whether you're just at the start of your sewing journey or in the middle, or maybe you have been sewing all of your life, I think we all get to a point where our to sew list is just far exceeds our skill at the time or even our time available. And it just becomes so overwhelming. Am I right? We all know this feeling. And so if that's you, this video is for you, my friends, because I have 3 steps to just help you work through this sewing overwhelm and get on with your projects so you can just make it anyway. Welcome back, my sewing friends. Welcome. My name is Evelyn Wood and I'm the creator of vintagesewingschool.com, and there I help hundreds of students get started sewing, and one of the things that comes up a lot is this sewing overwhelm. I know it all too well myself, is that when we get so excited, right? We get so excited by all of these projects we want to make and we're so inspired, and then all of a sudden it just comes crumbling down because just learning to sew a straight line. How are we going to make a 50s summer dress? Only just barely learning how to do zips yet. Want to make this gorgeous coat or some beautiful pants. And all the things we want to make just seems far out of reach of where our skill level is, or even time available. Sometimes this leans in with time available to sew as well. And it just gets so overwhelming, right? If you're like me, I kind of just freeze and end up not doing anything because it's just too overwhelming. So let's talk through, I have 3 steps, and get your pencil and your paper because we are going to do this together. Oh wait, go get your paper and your pencil. Did you get it? I hope so. Okay, let's get into the first one. The first step is to list it all out. So I mean every project that you have in your brain, get it onto paper. List out all the things that you really want to make. All of them. You can put them into little categories if you like, but don't worry about that too much. Just get them all onto paper. So maybe it is a nice winter coat, some blouses, nice silk sheer blouses. Maybe it's some jodhpurs. Maybe it is, this is just, a hypothetical list, of course. Nice woolly winter skirt. Maybe whatever it is, all the things that you would like to make, list them all out. And so now from this list, we need to pick just one. So first, narrow it down to the things you really want to make, your top 3 or 5, depending how long your list is, the ones that are really top. And then from there, we need to pick one. And how you go about picking that one would be, I think, depending on your personality. So one, either go with the easiest one first. And I'll go into more detail on how to pick the easiest one in the next steps, but either pick the easiest one that you can do with the least amount of sort of resistance or things you have to do or learn that'll give you a quick win that will sort of, if you need that, you like those quick smaller wins to keep motivating you to move you forward and forward and forward, then that's probably the one that you should pick, is the easiest quick win that you can get first. Or if you're completely uninspired by anything else and it doesn't matter how long it takes, all you want to do is just make that one thing that you're so inspired to make, then you pick the one that you are most excited to make. Doesn't matter how long it takes, you're committed and that's the one that you want to make, go with that one. So see, depends on your personality style, I think. Hopefully you know yourself well enough to know which one is the best one for you to choose. My example through this is going to be some jodhpurs. I'm really excited to make those, and I'm very much in need of some outdoors adventure type outfits coming up in my future. That's another story, but jodhpurs for me are my example through this. Now the next step is to list out how many things you need to learn or do from that particular style or pattern. So let me explain this. When I say how many things does the pattern have, this is something I teach my members of Vintage Sewing School, how to look at different patterns and styles and how to pick the easiest one to make for you as your individual skill level. And so this applies to this project the same. And so what I mean by things is either maybe it is a sewing skill or technique, or a certain, either one of the, like a sewing skill, like zips, etc., or something, a skill that you need to learn. Like, how many things are there that you might need to do? And so I'll give you some examples in just a moment and list them out. Put them in two sides on your paper here. So on one side, the things that you sort of already know how to do and covered, and one side is like you need to learn these things, or it's going to be, you need to do a lot of things to make it happen. And it's kind of, think about it as those points that are really stopping you and getting you scared to do. So those are the points that go on that side for sure. Okay, let me give you my example here and work through this. So what I would really need to do. The things that are kind of the sticking points for me, things that I would need to learn or do, are a good pattern. Oh, yeah. So I would like something historically accurate, and I need to find a pattern for this. It's not one that you can just, I don't have one in my collection already, and it's going to be a little bit harder to find. So that's the thing I need to work on. And the other is the fit. So I think jodhpurs go completely against a certain style that works on my body shape. I'm complete pear shape, and so jodhpurs are only going to accentuate that. So I think it's going to be a really hard time fitting this to make it work and me feel comfortable wearing them on my body shape. So that's something that I'll definitely have to work on and is a concern for me. And the other thing is a front fastening. These are quite different from what I've seen. I haven't as yet done a lot of research on them, so I think the front fastening will be something that I've not ever made before, so it will be something new for me to explore the way that these are traditionally fastened up at the front. So that's something for me. So what might these things look like for you? Maybe it is finding the right pattern. Maybe it is actually really learning the difference between body measurements and like the fit, getting the right size, right? So maybe it's really working on that. Maybe it's making a certain pattern adjustment for your body shape to actually fit you properly, finally actually doing that. Maybe it's fabric choice. Maybe you've made poor decisions in the past and you really want to work on that, and you know it's crucial to this project. Maybe it's actually working with a difficult fabric. So I always think of doing knits or a chiffon or a slippery fabric is kind of a thing in itself. You know, working with difficult fabric is a skill in its own. So that's one thing that you would need to be focused on while you're doing that project. So put that in that box too. Maybe it is zips, maybe it's collars or cuffs, maybe it's facings, waistbands, linings, buttonholes, nice seam finishes even. All of these are sorts of things that you might want to work on in your project. And so just list them out into ones that you already have covered and ones that you would really need to kind of work on in there. Oh, I forgot to say, my ones that I know I've got covered in my example are things like the fabric choice. I'm pretty confident that I'll be able to choose an appropriate fabric for this project. The general sewing of it, I think I'll have covered as well, shouldn't be a problem. And I also want to add a non-traditional pockets to these most likely somehow, and I think that won't be a problem for me to have to do. So they're in my, I've got this covered side of my page here. And now we need to make a plan. So look at how are you going to address each of these things, these items that you need to really work on. So make a plan on how you're going to work through them so that you can keep getting to that end result, right? So for example, I want with my jodhpurs, I need that historical pattern. So what I'm going to do is research and look through historical texts and look through all my vintage sewing books here, because I actually recall seeing a draft at home pattern for some jodhpurs in one of these old sewing books I have. So I'm going to look through so I can get an original, authentic pattern shape to start with. The waist fastening concerns that I have, I will do some research on those and find out what kind of fastenings were usually used on jodhpurs so that I can find the one that I like the most and then alter my pattern to include that type of fastening on mine. And then I will make 45 toiles mock-ups as needed so that I get the right fit on my body and I make them work for me, even if it is non-traditional tweaking and fit to make it work, but I will make these jodhpurs work on my pear shape. And so what might this look like for you? A plan of attack for each things. Maybe it's working out fit issues. So maybe you need to look at really work and learn how to understand body measurements versus garment measurements so you can get that initial first size down pat. I actually have videos on this already. I'll link all these down below for you too. They'll be a great resource. Maybe it is making a toile and there's different ways you can do it, of course, and I also have videos on those to make toiles as well. But maybe it's making a toile so you can figure out the fit and not sort of ruin your fashion fabric straight up. Perhaps it is learning those fit adjustments that you need. Maybe it's full bust adjustment, small bust adjustment, sway back adjustment, whatever it might be for your body shape. Actually learning how to do that adjustment, taking the time and learning how to do that first so you can apply it to this project, learning as you go through that. Maybe trial 3 different interfacings so you can choose which is the best one for you, or trialing your buttonholes and practicing your zips. I think you get the idea, right? So work through what you're going to do to work through these and practice and get good at them before, so that you get good as you're leading up before you get to your real end project, of course. Now, practice does not have to be pointless. Absolutely not. Don't think about it as a waste of time. So for example, in Vintage Sewing School, I have a wash bag, you know, like where you put your clothes in to wash so it keeps them all protected. A wash bag tutorial there. Now, the point of that tutorial isn't really to make a wash bag. The point of that tutorial is so that you can practice doing zips, you can practice doing seam finishes, but you get a usable item at the end of it. So you're not just doing zips on random bits of fabric and then throwing it away. You can turn it into a bag that you can actually use, a usable project. So think about maybe the ways that you could practice different skills that you need on maybe like micro, small projects so that you get something usable and it doesn't feel wasted, but still practicing those skills that you need on little micro projects, so to say. So think about that. Practice does not have to be pointless. Think outside the box here. And so a lot of this, of course, is, if for my members of Vintage Sewing School, it's quite easy because there's a resource center already there with all the skills. So looking at all the different skills you need, going and watching those lessons that are appropriate for those, and then working and practicing from there. So if you are actually interested and really ready to take on your sewing to that next level with that resource center there for you whenever you need it, I invite you to come join me at Vintage Sewing School, because that's what we do there. And it makes it really easy when you have this big like library of all of these skills that when you get to this point, you can just go and watch the videos. Anyway, it makes it really easy. I'll leave links down below. I'd love to have you in class. And so anyway, look at your list now. Look at my, actually mine's blank. I didn't write mine out. On here, I wrote them out before. But look at your list. I know I basically have now an action plan, a step-by-step. I know what my next steps are now, and I bet you looking at your piece of paper now, you know your next steps as well. And I feel so much less overwhelmed already because I know what my next steps are. It's a lot easier than you thought, right? Share with us below what your next project is and what your next steps are going to be. I'd love to hear it and how you worked through this little exercise. Love to hear those comments below. And of course, also leave your comments below on any extra tips you have for us on how you beat the sewing overwhelm when it becomes that. Leave those tips for us all down below, because sharing all of this, our sewing knowledge together, is how we all get better and learn more. And we can really start making those garments that we really, really love. Thank you so very much for watching, and until next time, my sewing friends, bye.